following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Jalen Reagor getting traded to Minnesota changes nothing.
6'4" guys running 4.4s. These guys don't grow on trees. And a lot of times I'm willing to bet on, especially long term, on the freak athlete.
You don't ever want to overreact to what guys look like in preseason. There's been a ton of preseason all-stars that never make rosters or never pan out. Good morning, Belly Up Fantasy Live. There's the whistle. That means it's game time. It's time to get it going. How we doing, everybody? Good morning.
We are doing great down here on the bottom. I don't know about you all on the top, but down here we're good.
That's kind of, yeah, it's kind of funny because we literally are. This is how we're kind of set up in the country too. Like with I'm upper Midwest and Andrew's upper Atlantic, states.
We finally got our shit together.
So
put it together this way.
Get ourselves laid out geographically here. But it is Sunday morning. It is the final game day of the 2022-2023 NFL season, which means it is Super Bowl Sunday. It is our last chance for fantasy glory. If you're making bets, if you're a betting person on the NFL, this is the last, fun go around, unless you're into doing free agency props and draft props and things like that. But we do have we're going to talk about the Super Bowl today. We're going to talk about, we just had the NFL honors. So we've had some award winners we can talk about here. Coaching hires and the coaching cycle is still ongoing. That will definitely affect what happens next year with fantasy prospects all over the league. But first off, I am Chase Thornton coming to you from the Mott and Bailey Basement Bar. With me, as per usual, Mr. Mallard up there in the corner and Kevin Wilson. Andrew, how you doing today?
I'm good. It's Super Bowl Sunday. It's a vibe today. Been rocking out since I dropped my kids off this morning and ready to roll.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Kevin, what's going on down south?
We're good down here. We survived our brush with winter weather, and we had sleet, we had freezing rain, we had thunder sleet, which I had never heard of before,
and we'll get that up here
with ice and just everything else all mixed in together. And but we made it through, and it's Super Bowl Sunday, so we are jazzed down here. Even though it's Philadelphia, a lot of people around this area couldn't really, get into that a whole lot. But seeing as how I'm not a Cowboys guy, I'm good to go.
Yeah, well, yeah. Glad you survived down there. Ted Cruz didn't even have to take a family vacation to Mexico, so we're all good there. All right, well, let's jump right back into it. First off, hey, Fantasy Football Expo's coming up, in August 11th through the 13th. I know I've already bought my ticket. I signed up. I know, Andrew, you were talking about it. Kevin, you got plans to go this year, or are you going to stay down where
I've been looking into that, and it's my anniversary week, so if the wife comes, then I could think about it. If she's not supposed to accompany, then that's going to have to be a pass for me. So I'm looking into that, see if people would object to the wife coming with me. So.
I don't object to the wife coming with you, but it's the week after my anniversary. I'm lucky. It's perfect timing for me. My anniversary is the 6th, so it's literally 1 week afterwards. I'm good to go on that. Andrew, what about your anniversary, dude?
That's a fucking joke, right?
Let's celebrate. All right.
That's fantastic. Oh, wow.
Right,
that's why do you think I am going to the Fantasy Expo this year?
Why do you think I'm free? All right. Let's jump right into it. Let's talk about some head coach and offensive coordinator hires now. Not as many head coach openings as there were last year. Last year we saw they tied the record with 10 head coach openings in the league. This year we had 5. Carolina has already hired Frank Reich. We know about that. Denver has already hired Sean Payton. Houston hired DeMeco Ryans, but we're still waiting on names in Arizona and Indianapolis. Let's start in Carolina with Frank Reich. There, you guys. What do you guys make of that? What do you think? How do you think that bodes for the fantasy prospects of the Carolina Panthers? Were there any fantasy prospects to begin with? But Andrew, what do you make of Frank Reich going to Carolina?
Look, I like Frank Reich. I've always liked Frank Reich. I think he's he's actually has experience, so I'm happy to see a team. Look, between Sean Payton and Frank Reich, finally we see some coaching hires this year that make sense. So I think this is the right move for the Panthers. I could see it benefiting DJ Moore, but I don't. Look, here's the thing with the fantasy prospects on Carolina. I don't think it has anything to do with Frank Reich. It's all about who's playing quarterback for them at this point. It's really all that matters because it's such a shit show there right now that Frank Reich could do all he wants to do there and have it all go his way. But if they still have a Sam Darnold back there, it's everyone's fantasy prospects is still going to be on the floor.
Kevin, what do you make of it?
Well, Andrew, you pretty much summed it up with the quarterback situation down. Well, I guess that would be up from here, Indianapolis. But
Look at the screen. Look at the order.
Yeah, that's right. So, the only thing that gives me pause, because Frank Reich had quarterbacks. I know they were like 60, years old and whatnot. But the quarterbacks that he had, he couldn't do anything with them. Nothing. And so that leaves me some concern because Carolina doesn't have a quarterback, whether it's 20 years old or 30, 40, whatever else it might be. So it'll be interesting to see. I think that the quarterback, because they've got the running backs. I like the running backs. I like the wide receiver, of course. But as you said, Andrew, it all comes down to the quarterback, and I don't know if Frank Reich's the guy that can straighten that out.
Right. I think I agree with you both there. I think that, Frank Reich, I think he could be good for the franchise in the same way. I mean, not to the same degree, but in the same way that Doug Peterson just seems to be a steadying, calming presence when he got to Jacksonville. I think that, Frank Reich can kind of steady the ship in Carolina, but I think that anybody's performance, whether it's the team's fantasy football or on the real field, is going to come down to who emerges as their actual quarterback. Are they going to, is he somehow going to unlock Sam Darnold? They did draft, remember Matt Corral last year.
Are anybody putting money on Sam Darnold anymore? I just can't see it happening.
Well, I don't either. But even if he can get him to just not do harm, what I mean? Even if he could just do that, that team could make a major leap forward. I don't think they're a playoff contender yet in terms of the standings. I don't think that, he's going to all of a sudden elevate, Sam Darnold or Matt Corral or PJ Walker or anybody else they get there to a top 10 fantasy quarterback. I think DJ Moore continues to be solid and Deontay Foreman continue to be solid, but I agree with you guys. The quarterback situation has to get sorted out before we can make a final read on the Frank Reich situation.
They need to go find somebody other than what they have now. That's whoever, like you said, Walker, doesn't matter. None of those guys are working. They need to find somebody.
So here's my one thought here is that, Kevin, you mentioned Reich not doing anything with his older veteran quarterbacks in the past. I'm be curious to see if he's able to develop. And if obviously if this is the Panthers saying they believe in Reich to develop the next guy, because like Chase said, they have Corral, or do they go and get someone else in the draft this year? Is this a long-term plan, or like you said, Chase, is this just a stopgap? Let's refocus the team and then we'll move on from there. It's an interesting situation for sure to watch here.
I'm interested to see if they, because they don't know what they have in Matt Corral yet. He got injured so early last year, and he was just out. They have no idea what they have in him yet. So you've already got a young quarterback on a rookie contract, and not necessarily a high end rookie contract either. You've already got that guy in house. You've got Frank Reich, who was an NFL quarterback himself, and I think the hope for bringing him in is that he will develop your next quarterback in the future. I agree with you. He didn't seem to do a whole hell of a lot with who he had down there in Indy, but he also had some guys who are pretty set in their ways other than Sam Ehlinger, and Sam Ehlinger is not Sam Ehlinger. Right? It's not the second coming of Lamar Jackson.
Not fall over ourselves about Sam Ehlinger, even though we went to Texas and all that. But as well, the Texas quarterbacks aren't the bomb. So,
All right. Well, as you mentioned there, Denver and Sean Payton, we've seen some, a hire that makes sense, that seems to make sense. Now, Sean Payton was a hot name this cycle, was supposed to be, was rumored to be the favorite in a couple different areas. Denver pounced on him as soon as DeMeco Ryans was signed in Houston. So Sean Payton to Denver. We know he's worked with a quarterback of smaller stature before. I mean, that's relative. Keep in mind I'm 5'5", but Drew Brees, Drew Brees isn't one of these 6'5", 6'6". He's not the Trevor Lawrence build.
He's not even 6 foot.
Right. But obviously Hall of Famer, one of the best to ever do it, and played a lot of his career under Sean Payton and in Sean Payton's system, the way they work together. I think the hope is that they can strike lightning twice and have Wilson in Payton's system do the same kinds of things that we saw Drew Brees do. Kevin, we'll go to you first on this one. Sean Payton in Denver. Are you excited for it or much ado about nothing?
Well, you got to be jazzed up if, we're talking about Sean Payton. And I like that, he told Russell Wilson, your quarterback guru, can pack sand, because that's not happening in our building anymore. Mm-hmm. And so, Russell Wilson, as great as he's been, is just awful at the moment and embarrassing Wilsons throughout the land. He needs to stop. If he could stop doing that, at least, that would be wonderful. And my only thing about is they gave up a ton of draft picks to get Russell Wilson, first of all. Then they had to give up draft picks to get Sean Payton. So where are these players going to come from that are going to make any difference up there in Denver? And so that is my main thing, is they got to get Russell Wilson straightened out. He needs to – all you have to do – he walks up to Russell Wilson and says, hey, Drew Brees. That's the end of the conversation right there. And then Russell Wilson should be focused on every word that comes out of his mouth from there on out. After that, if he can do that, I think he could still be serviceable. I don't know if he's going to – I don't think that he's going to be the guy that's going to throw 30 touchdowns and, 6 interceptions like he did just a few years ago. But if he can make it so that he is top, 15, if he can do that with him, then, because Denver's got some offensive pieces that you have to like, maybe the running back, whoever that might be, they need to get that straightened out. But if they can get Russell Wilson, at least so that I can not have to hide my name every time a Wilson's mentioned, that would be awesome.
All right. Well, Kevin's given up on maybe giving up on cousin Russ there. But yeah, I agree. Yeah, I like that Sean Payton came in and said, listen, Russ, you are not the LeBron James of the NFL. We are not going to allow you to just, run this show. I'm the new sheriff in town. I'm in charge here. I like that. I think they need to learn how to work together. Andrew, what are you excited about for Sean Payton in Denver?
I'm just excited to see Sean Payton back on the sideline. I think he's just one of those coaches over, at least in our generation, over my lifetime of watching NFL, that he carries a presence when he's on the sideline. That it's kind of a no bullshit respect kind of thing that he carries when he's on the sideline. And I like the way the players respond to him, or at least they did in New Orleans. So I'm curious to see how he is when it comes to a new team, a younger team than I think he's probably coached in the past with Denver, because they got a lot of younger athletic pieces there. I'll be curious to see how his philosophies transfer over, because Denver was just a massive disappointment this year. There's no excuse for what happened to them this year.
Yep, their defense was solid enough to get them to the playoffs, and their offense gave them 14 points a game.
So, and that's the thing, that he's now got a defense that he never really had to this level in New Orleans. There may have been a year or two here or there, but for the most part, he's never really had a defense that can carry his offense. So I'm curious to see if there's a situation in the NFL right now that a team can turn around just based off the coaching hire. It's Denver. They have all the other pieces. So,
I agree there.
So I'm excited to see that kind of come to play, and I think it's only going to build Peyton's legacy in the NFL.
Yeah, and he may not even have to pay Bountygate to this defense. I mean, this defense was, like you said, Kevin, this defense was ready to go this year. They were ready to rock, and that's, I think.
And they did. And they held guys to 10 points, right? 14, whatever it was. And the defense and the offense gave them 9. Just that game against Baltimore is a prime example.
Exactly. It's the one thing we said about Denver all year, is that in any of their games, you could count on it being under the points and it just being a slow, boring game, because they knew they had to win it on defense, and that was their only chance.
It was so sad to see. I mean, we knew that defense was going to be rock solid, and they were. everybody was so hyped about the Russell signing, and we thought, oh, hell yeah, they're ready to take off. They're ready to challenge Kansas City in that division. They're ready to challenge Los Angeles. But yeah, I mean, injuries didn't help them this year.
Sure.
For one, Nathaniel Hackett didn't help anyone. He's off to New York, and we can talk about him later. He's off to New York to help there. No, they do have some young, exciting pieces. If Javonte Williams can come back strong from that knee injury, they've got a good young running back. Jerry Jeudy is not old.
No.
He's
None of those
24.
receivers.
Well,
are old.
Sutton's not old either.
None of
Sutton, like 26. Like, what is he?
They're all
Sutton's
around
not
the same
30
age.
yet.
Sutton, all those guys.
Yeah.
Remember
They've
that
got
Tim
a tight
Patrick.
end who had
Tim
to
Patrick too. He'll be
year.
right. Patrick
Right.
will be coming back.
And
They'll
so
get Tim
they've got
Patrick.
the pieces on offense and pretty decent offensive line, it seems to me. And so they could step up. And like I said, if Russell Wilson can make it, because I got a bunch of Russell Wilson jerseys in my closet, and that's where they're staying right now. I'm wearing a Seahawk jersey, but it's Sean Springs at the present time.
It's a good one to wear too, though.
It is.
But I'm
It is certainly a good, solid jersey to have on at this point. But I'd like to be able to display my last name at some point going forward. So if he could make that happen, that would be awesome.
And I'm glad you brought up the tight end because, as everyone knows, my draft darling Greg Dulcich last year.
That's right. You talked
were
about
right.
him. I remember that.
I think he will. Look, Sean Payton is a guy that made an aging Ben Watson look serviceable in fantasy for a year. He's now finally has an athletic tight end. I think he's going to be able to use that. Sean Payton's going to be able to scheme plays where Sutton's going to have his shots, Judy's going to have his shots. Like you said, Tim Patrick, down the seam, they're going to have that Dulcich.
I like Tim Patrick.
It really, once again, it's going to ride on Russell Wilson. If he can just be right, I think, Kevin, you said it perfectly. That sweet spot right around that number 15 quarterback is all he needs to be for them in order for them to be a playoff team that has a chance to make a run.
And that's all he needs to be.
That's right. So he needs to shift his mindset a little bit where he doesn't think he has to be somebody like Aaron Rodgers, right? He needs to, because he
tries too hard sometimes.
He does. And, and he knew better than any quarterback I've ever seen, knew how to get out of bounds, knew how to get down so that he wasn't putting himself in a position to be hurt. This did not happen this year. Remember, he took that hit, and instead of sliding, he tried to go, and he got hammered.
Mm-hmm.
And so he needs to go back to that. And so, survive for another play. And, maybe another play will get you 10 yards. But he needs to straighten up. That's no question.
All right. Well, I think they do have the best shot of any of these teams that have had to hire a new head coach. I think they do have the best shot to make the quickest turnaround, if only because they're the only team that's not going to have quarterback questions next year. I mean, we talked about Houston hiring DeMeco Ryans. It's a great story. Coming back home to where he played. DeMeco Ryans was your NFL assistant coach of the year as the defensive coordinator in San Francisco. But
it seems like if you're the defensive coordinator in San Francisco, that will launch you into the stratosphere.
Oh yeah, it's a free ticket pretty much to the higher job. But until they get their quarterback situation figured out, I don't think anybody's too excited or worried about them. Yeah, well they've got a ton of hires still to make there. Arizona, they were rumored to be in
a train wreck.
They were rumored to be in on Peyton, but then supposedly he soured on them a little bit because of their.
He soured on the quarterback.
And because
Let's be
of their
serious about
facilities.
this. He does not like Murray.
Yeah. And there are questions about Kyler Murray about how much he's going to be able to play, how available he's going to be next year. Anyway, they are rumored to have Mike Kafka and Lou Anarumo as listed as their finalists. Indianapolis is a train wreck down there. To borrow a phrase from Kevin there, I'm not worried about. They still have 5 guys up for their. Supposedly, they've told Kevin Callahan. They've told Jeff Saturday that they're not going to be the guys, or at least that's the.
Well, Jeff
rumor
Saturday
right now.
just needs to step back into the booth and let that be the end of that.
He's good
because that's the only reason why that would make any sense for that they gave him that job in the first place was because he could go back to the booth and not hurt any kind of his reputation. Whereas if they put an established coach in there and they train wrecked as they did, that guy will not be a head coach ever again after that.
There you have it, Andrew. I brought it up, and I want to retouch on it here. I'm excited about the idea, or at least not. I'm not like giddy about it, but it intrigues me. I'm interested in the idea of Giants offensive coordinator Mike Kafka going to Arizona as their head coach. He's a young guy, 35 years old. This was his first year as an offensive coordinator for the Giants. And he took Daniel Jones from somebody who looked like he was on his way out of town to the most efficient passing season of his time in the league so far. And with Daniel Jones, kind of like we just mentioned earlier, if he can just do no harm, that team, I mean, look what he was able to do with no receiving help at all. I'm intrigued by the idea of Mike Kafka getting to work with Kyler Murray, with his athletic skill set. We know that he can be a runner just like Daniel Jones is. We know that he's got an arm, and they've got a ton more receiving talent there just walking in the door. What are your thoughts there on that possibility as opposed to Lou Anarumo, the Cincinnati Bengals defensive coordinator? Who would you rather see there from a fantasy standpoint, at least?
Oh, I would definitely rather see Kafka. But look, here's the thing with no matter who's there in Arizona, it's not about scheming. Arizona doesn't have a scheme problem. They don't have a talent problem. They don't have a front office problem. What they have is a culture problem, and that's all Kafka. Whoever goes in there, it has to be flipping the culture on his head. It has to be a hard-nosed coach who takes control of the room, and someone like DeAndre Hopkins will most likely respond to that because he's kind of at that point in his career as a veteran where he's in this no bullshit, I'm doing this now, and we're going to do whatever it takes kind of attitude. DeAndre Hopkins needs a authoritative figure behind him to help push that message. He can't do it alone. That locker room is too young. That locker room is too wild west, gung-ho kind of let's all do it our own way kind of thing. They have a culture problem. Whoever goes in there, I think Kafka could be the guy. Well, I don't know much about how he runs the kind of the culture of his rooms, but that's got to be the main focus of whoever goes into Arizona.
Well, I'm interested because he's the offensive coordinator for the Giants. The Giants just had Brian Daboll. They brought him in coach of the year in his first year there. Really did seem to, as you just said, turn that around and turn that culture completely around to where the Giants were a threat. They felt like a threat all the way up until that Philadelphia Eagles game. And then the rails came off, but we're talking about the number 1 seed down there. Now, so Kevin, I mean, yeah, what do you think? I mean, do you think that because of the Daboll situation do you think that Kafka might have what it takes to turn that culture around, as Andrew says, or does anybody have that ability right now as long as Kyler Murray is still the face of your franchise?
Well, if you could straighten out New York and all that goes on up there, in the big city and everything else, if you can get that under control, then it seems to me that if you go down to Arizona, you should be able to at least do that. And so, but when it comes to Kyler Murray, is he going to be healthy, right? Is he coachable? Okay. And so that's somebody that's have to go in there. Let's say he is healthy. That's somebody that's going to have to go in there and this thing about, well, maybe I'll study, maybe I won't, all that sort of thing.
He's Clan. Yeah.
That needs to come to a screeching halt. This is the way we're going to do it. And Andrew, you had it right. Go in there and just say, we've had enough of this wild, wild west kind of scenario situation. They're wild, wild west, but it's soft at the same time. That's kind of hard to pull off, but Arizona did it. And so he needs to go down there and just whomever it might be. And so if that's what happens, at least you could say, hey, I straightened out Daniel Jones. All right. So you might want to listen to what I have to say. Well, you were going to listen, not Mike. You're going to listen to what I have to say because I don't know what the last regime was doing, giving out contracts for 18 years and all this other kind of stuff. So, but if he can go down there if that's who they hire, and just get Arizona so that they couldn't win at home.
Yeah,
right? They could not
Well,
win. At
that's
home.
the thing.
How
Whoever
many
wins the
quality
Super Bowl.
you've got to be able to win on your home field at least to be able to do anything in the NFL, and that needs to get straightened out in a hurry.
No, I agree that the joke there being that whoever wins the Super Bowl will have more wins at State Farm Stadium this year than the Cardinals did, and
hilarious.
that is
No,
that is
that's
not a good thing.
No,
As Martha Stewart would say.
So I got a question for the group real fast because this just popped in my head here, and it's a curious thought I just had. Do you think a coaching hire would keep DeAndre Hopkins there, or do you think DeAndre Hopkins is just done and gone in Arizona? Like, do you think if they bring in the right guy, Hopkins will stick around in Arizona, or do you think
I don't know.
do you think his ship has sailed?
I don't know enough about D-Hop's relationship with Kyler Murray.
Yeah,
to see that, but it feels like a missed opportunity if they really were in on the Sean Payton thing. We just talked about Sean Payton coming into town and being the sheriff and telling Russell Wilson, of all people, who's been an MVP and has won Super Bowls and has been a top quarterback in this league. We've already seen Sean Payton come into Denver and lay down the law. And it feels like, yes, there is that type of nuanced heavy-handedness needed to turn that culture around down there in Arizona with Kyler Murray. But that feels like a missed opportunity, because if Peyton could come into town and straighten out Kyler Murray, the sky's the limit there. Kyler Murray, again.
Yeah, but he didn't do it, and that's a red flag if there ever was one to me. Definitely. that Sean Payton, because Kyler Murray, of course, is a way younger quarterback than Russell Wilson is, of course. And he looked at that and said, no, I'm going to pass. And I'm going to go to Denver and coach the guy who's 36, whatever Russell Wilson is right now.
Yeah.
And so,
he took the guy on the end of his career as opposed to the guy that he could
develop. Right. And so, as far as
a more attractive job, anyways, than Arizona and as a whole.
I think you're right about that. I agree with your point. As far as D-Hop is concerned, he's a veteran guy. He knows, by this time, when someone's bull crapping him.
Yes. Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Right. And so if the guy that goes in there gets hired, I don't think he's going to do anything until the guy gets hired, or maybe he'll sit down with him, talk to him. And if he likes what he hears, then he might stay around.
Because the NFL world has just kind of assumed that D-Hop is going to get traded, because I know the Patriots, last I looked a couple weeks ago, were the betting odds to trade for D-Hop, which would be interesting because now that they've hired Brian Flores,
Bill O'Brien.
Bill
O'Brien as the offensive coordinator. Obviously, him and D-Hop have a history from Houston, and it might not be the greatest history.
And you have to wonder if that is that a good thing, though, because Bill O'Brien down in Houston, it was not all 5 stars down there.
Exactly. So there's a lot of interesting. Arizona's kind of got a lot of interesting things going on that could affect a few other teams, could affect a lot of things. So I'll be curious to see what happens there for sure.
All right. Well, speaking of Bill O'Brien, he is one of the new offensive coordinator hires in the league. Real quick here before we get to our first ad spot, we've got 6 new coordinators, offensive coordinators have been hired around the league. Now, a lot of it's been just fruit basket upset in terms of who's going to go where, just reshuffling the deck. We're still waiting on hires in Arizona, Baltimore, Carolina, Denver, Houston, Indy, Tampa Bay, Washington. We're still waiting on a ton of hires, but we do have 6 hires. Of the guys who have been hired so far, Brian Schottenheimer in Dallas, Kellen Moore in Los Angeles for the Chargers, Mike LaFleur for the Rams in LA, Bill O'Brien for the Patriots, Hackett for the Jets, Tim Kelly in Tennessee being elevated from pass game coordinator to offensive coordinator. Of the 6 guys who've been hired so far, who is the most exciting for you? Andrew, let's go to you first.
I mean, mine's obvious. I mean, I am a Patriots fan, so obviously it's Bill O'Brien for me as a fan. But also, I think just from a football standpoint too, the Patriots were definitely a team that had a lot more to give than what they lived up to this past season. You can hate on their receiving core. Yes, they don't have a top end receiver. They're not like a top tier receiving group, but their receiving group is not as bad as how they looked this year. Mac Jones is not as bad as he looked this year.
No.
And the problem lies with Matt Patricia trying to be offensive coordinator and offensive
What a
line
mistake
coach,
that was.
because the biggest problem was the offensive line, and Mac Jones lost faith in the time that he had in the pocket. He lost faith in the plays that were being called. He lost faith that receivers were going to be where they needed to be for him to throw the ball in a timely fashion. It was just a mess. Bill O'Brien coming in, I think, is going to get us a lot closer to what we saw with Mac Jones and that receiving core when Josh McDaniels was there the year before. So I'm excited for that. But you all knew that was going to be the case.
Right. Kevin, who intrigues you the most here of these hires?
Well, I have to agree with Andrew about Bill O'Brien because, one, he's coming from Alabama. Two, where did Mac Jones come from? Alabama.
Yeah.
So that's a natural fit to me right there. And I think the guy that has the least impact is Schottenheimer down here in Dallas. He won't be calling the plays. So
True.
that, it could be me being an offensive coordinator. It doesn't really make a whole lot of difference to
What is
me.
the point of announcing that you're hiring a guy's offensive coordinator, and then almost in the same breath announcing that Mike McCarthy's going to call all the plays?
Well, and see,
If
that
that
was
was
my
the
point.
point.
That was my point earlier with last year with the Nathaniel Hackett hire in Denver, is that he was the offensive coordinator for the Packers and for Aaron Rodgers. He was, but he wasn't. He was kind of the figurehead. He had a role in implementing the game plan, but we all knew that was LaFleur's show up there. And before that, it had been Big Mike's show.
Yes.
And Big Mike is the guy who's going to call the shots down there. And so I agree. Yeah, Brian.
And he said that's what he wanted to do. That's what he's wanted to do this whole time that Kellen Moore has been here in Dallas. But he was, the wonder kid, under Jerry Jones. And so that was pretty much untouchable up until the point where, Dak couldn't hit anyone else but the guy wearing the wrong uniform. And he couldn't straighten out Dak Prescott. So Kellen Moore had to go. I think he'll do fine in LA. But he needed a new voice. Yeah. And what better voice is the guy that's the head coach that's kind of running the show? That's a little different scenario down here.
I'm going to disagree with you a little bit there on that, Kevin. I have seen Mike McCarthy and what he does as the head play caller, and so get ready for a lot of run on first, pass on second, run on third down. Everybody will know what's happening, or it'll be run on first, run on second, and then pass on third and then punt on fourth. He got very stale and very predictable in Green Bay, unfortunately. I would like to think he learned his lesson, but we've seen his clock management issues as a veteran head coach. We've still seen him have weird time management issues and things like that on the sideline where I don't know that he's necessarily wired to oversee the entire thing and concentrate on the offense by himself. But you brought up Kellen Moore, and I mean, you're down there, you see it a little bit closer than I do. I'm not necessarily sure that Kellen Moore was the entire problem there in Dallas. I'm excited to see what he can do.
No, he was not. And they had a solid offense.
They had a great offense.
Up until they went up against, the 49ers. They had,
numbers-wise, they had a great offense.
They went up against the 49ers.
And even though, Zeke was on a plane that was crash landing, all right? And even though he averaged like 2 yards a carry in the last, 6 games, whatever, and so that didn't stop their offense.
Yeah.
Because they turned around and gave it to Tony. All that was working until he got hurt against the 49ers. And so their offense was fine. It was just that Dak needed a new voice. And we'll find out whether that new voice, the head coach, makes any difference at all. It needs to make a difference. Because if it doesn't, then Dak is having his last season here in Dallas because he has no guaranteed money after this year.
So here's the thing. I don't think any of these offensive coordinator hires are going to be detrimental to a team that they were hired by. For once, I actually think all of them will at least keep things status quo, if not at least go up a little bit. As far as productivity for the offense. The only one that is really questionable is obviously Nathaniel Hackett at the Jets, considering what we just saw out of Nathaniel Hackett. Obviously, he's not going to be the head coach there, but I think we all lost a little bit of faith in Nathaniel Hackett over this.
I think we lost a lot of faith.
Yeah,
in anybody that he ruined it for anybody that was named Nathaniel. So,
but let's not also forget though. I just want to make sure we don't miss this before we go to break. Let's talk a quick defensive coordinator hire here that I think could turn around a team that we were all saying was fake all year, deservedly so. Brian Flores, defensive coordinator for the Vikings, that hire.
If there's a team that needs to get turned around on defense, that's it. They had an offense that blew the doors off the place.
I am a massive Brian Flores fan because
I think that's a great hire. Great hire. Great hire, and all that stuff, the legal stuff, and everything else aside.
Yeah,
he is a great mind when it comes to defense, and I think that's a great hire by Minnesota.
Andrew, what excites you about him though?
Here's the thing. This is the one thing we said about Minnesota's defense all year is that they're going to give up the big plays because they're sloppy, they're undisciplined, and whatnot. What he did with the Patriots defense when he was defensive coordinator here is he got them not only disciplined, but they were aggressive. He was blitzing from, getting creative with the blitz packages. That it was unpredictable. He turned that defense around from, when it was the defense under Matt Patricia here in New England. It was a solid defense, but they still played very safe. I won't say the defense was predictable under Matt Patricia, but it was more predictable than it was with Brian Flores. Brian Flores came in, and all of a sudden we have linebackers shooting the gap. We got edge rushers. Everyone was flying all over the place. He started to do that in Miami as the head coach. That culture, that philosophy started spilling over Miami. All obviously what happened down there is a mess. And I hated that what has happened to him had happened and he kind of disappeared for a year. But him in Minnesota, I think they have the talent to where he's going to be able to use.
They were a good defense not long ago.
Exactly. They still have the talent there where he's going to be able to have the pieces there to once again have an aggressive defense that should surprise some offenses, catch them off guard, get some turnovers, because that was one thing that he did with the Patriots too. They got a ton of turnovers under him. That shortens that field for an already explosive offense. Minnesota might just have the same record next year as they did this year, but
it's a more solid record because
exactly. Oh, right. I agree with all of that.
What they go 10-1 and one-score games or whatever it was.
No, yeah,
no, that's not going to carry over 2 years in a row.
That cannot carry over. But I am out here, and it's time for our first spot. We'll come back on the other side. We'll touch on the awards real quick, and then we will get to actually the show of the day, the Super Bowl.
Let's go.
Fellas, do you sometimes need a little help in the bedroom? Valentine's Day is just around the corner, and our sponsors at RexMD are here to help you make this the best night of your life. Erectile dysfunction is a common medical issue that over 30 million men in the U.S. tackle every day. We've all had those nights where we get too nervous and just need a little help. The doctors at RexMD will evaluate you online, no office visit needed, and ship medication directly to your door before the big day. With RexMD, they're here to help and provide you with real FDA-approved medications at the best price. Act now to take advantage of their Valentine's Day deal by heading to RexMD.com/bellyup. Our exclusive deal will save you up to 90% off, where you'll pay as low as $2 per dose on generic Viagra instead of $90+ on Viagra. That's RexMD/bellyup for 90% off. Your partner will thank you.
Hells yeah, they will. Get over there, use that promo code, get in on some of that. All right.
So this is my first show since the new sponsor there. So just our sponsors now are all about making us bigger and cleaner downstairs. So
that's right. Cleaner with the lawnmower and all that. So yeah,
fantastic show.
What more does everybody want? All right, real quick here. Yeah, we mentioned that the NFL Honors Show happened this past week. We found out all of our award winners here. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, MVP. I don't think anybody argues with that. Yeah. Justin Jefferson, Offensive Player of the Year. Nick Bosa, Defensive Player of the Year. I'm interested in the Rookies of the Year. Offensive and defensive rookies of the year both came from New York, and we had set on draft. Now, pretty much the consensus coming out of the draft was that the Jets had absolutely crushed it.
Yes,
they had about 800 first round picks,
but they nailed them all, which is hard to do.
Right? Yeah. If you're going to screw that up,
believe me, I've seen it. I know it's a hockey reference, but I saw a year when the Bruins had 3 straight picks. It was number 13, 14, and 15 in the first round. And none of them are with the system anymore. So you could screw up a lot of first round picks in any
No,
sport.
it's not it's not easy to do, but it's actually not hard. There's a narrow
It's not
path
hard
there
to do.
that you should
You
be
make
able-
one wrong pick, and that just snowballs.
Exactly.
And then the next thing you know, you're thumbing rides on the side of the road.
But we got, I mean, offensive rookie of the year ended up being Garrett Wilson, the wide receiver from the Jets.
Deserving.
He ended up being their number one receiver.
I
mean,
disagree with
he
that
ascended.
100 times over.
And I thought you might have some thoughts on that. Now, honestly,
Even though his name's Wilson, I disagree.
honestly, before the injury, I think they had this award won no matter what, because Breece Hall was looking like a load before he
He's a
injured
top 10
himself.
running
there
back, easy if you say.
mid-season.
So if he comes back
was
healthy, then the Jets are really in good shape.
They are sitting. I mean,
If
between
they can
him and
just
Michael
figure
Carter
out
in
who the
backfield,
quarterback is going to be, that would be great.
Yeah.
right? And that's what scares me about hiring Nathaniel Hackett. Is I'm not necessarily sure. And we keep riding Hackett, and I keep bringing up the fact that he didn't necessarily call plays in Green Bay, but let's not forget he was offensive coordinator in Jacksonville and in Buffalo. It's not like he doesn't have experience in that role.
Sure.
But
Well, he left
still
it all
deserves to be written. I'm
apparently
sorry,
in
he
Green
does.
Bay when he went to Denver. He didn't pack his bags or something happened there.
right, he left
Wait,
all,
what
left
year-
all
what
his
year was
football
he-
reference books at home or something.
What year was he OC in Buffalo?
I don't have it off the top of my
Was
head.
it, well,
I
I'm just
really
curious.
don't.
I don't know myself the history of that, but was it Josh Allen's terrible start to his career? just
Right.
curious.
Oh no! Yeah, we might
I
want
could
to.
be way wrong there, but I'm just curious. You said
Right.
that, and I didn't realize he'd been in Buffalo.
But I mean, the point we were originally getting to, the young talent on that Jets team,
Yeah.
that they have, that Garrett Wilson. Now there were a lot. It seems to me, I'm not surprised that you disagree with it, Kevin, because there were a lot of guys who had an argument there for that. I felt like there were late in the year.
There's one
Some
guy.
guys came
that
on.
had a
I know
solid
who you,
argument.
I bet I can guess who it is for you, but
I'm
mean,
sure you probably can.
Drake London ended up, even though he didn't have quite the counting numbers that we were wanting from him,
But he
definitely
showed up
looks-
later on in the season,
did,
so
and he
he's
looks
showing
like the kind
progress.
of guy that they want going forward.
That's
Tyler-
right.
That's fair.
Staying with that same team, Tyler Algier, late in the year, looks like a legitimate starting NFL running back there, and could be something in the future. Isaiah Pacheco playing later tonight,
Same thing. A late
came on and
start to
kind
him
of
this
took
year.
control of their.
He's got to
backfield.
be when we talk about value. Zalia Pachenko, who could beat him?
Yeah, play
Right.
him in DFS
Well,
today, by the way.
Purdy, I
I
guess.
am.
Yeah, we could talk about Purdy, but as far as non-Purdy's, Isaiah Pachenko, 7th round pick, and he's playing today.
I think
Yep.
Purdy was hurt by the fact that he wasn't the guy the whole year. But
Yeah,
man,
that definitely.
Yeah.
you talk about a guy who
Which
made a case
deservedly
in a
so, I
limit.
think. Rookie of the year, I think it needs to be a little consistency needs to be considered. Obviously, it's not consistency for him; it was opportunity, but still,
It was an opportunity, but it was consistency too. The dude threw two
Well,
touchdowns every freaking week, and
I
they
know.
didn't lose with him.
But we also saw we also shit on Jimmy Garoppolo all the time, and he had a similar start
That's
to
true.
his career between
they-
both the 49ers and the Patriots. So
They
I mean,
did not lose with Brock Purdy at quarterback as a starter.
Mhm.
Throw out that Eagles game because they didn't have Brock Purdy the whole freaking game. He did not lose as a starting quarterback.
I love
as,
that. The
as
reason why the
Mr.
49ers
Irrelevant.
lost to the Eagles is because Brock Purdy wasn't starting.
Mr. Irrelevant.
If you want to talk about the idea that, I mean, that anybody could have made a case in a limited sample, in a
Sure.
small sample.
Yeah,
You know, you get the same argument in baseball, Kevin, where people are like, well, can a pitcher really be the MVP because they're only playing 33 times a year or whatever? They only start. In a limited sample size, Brock Purdy made a great case. But Kevin, let's go to you because I know you disagree. Tell us why Garrett Wilson wasn't and your guy
Well,
was.
Garrett Wilson was not the great story and all that, but Kenneth Walker, the third, no less. All right.
Actually, that's a good point. Actually, he had a great argument too. You're right.
He had a great argument. He, you talk about he had a lack of opportunity because he was the backup, and then the injury happened, and he stepped in, and he was running all over the place.
They didn't miss
And
it.
he, Denver, Seattle, down the stretch, they were in danger of just having the whole season come completely off the rails. It was, but he kept them in the game. He was the running back who, kept that offensive balance going on right there. And he came in there. If Kenneth Walker is not on the Seahawks, and they're not in the playoffs, I'll guarantee you that.
I agree with that.
No
completely.
question about that. And he had a season where he looked like he, it's not his first year, maybe not even his second year, because he got in there and he was solid as a running back could possibly be. And I think he should have been the offensive rookie of the year, simply based on, he basically was the reason why they made the playoffs. Everything else being what it was, they had the quarterback, they had the receivers, they didn't have the running back, and that was the missing ingredient, but it wasn't missing.
He has a great argument for it, and I agree with you completely. But let's just real quick here. Let's just look at the crop of rookies who became the guy.
It was a good year.
Team. Yeah, Damian Pierce down in Houston, who took control of their backfield, mess and looks like a legitimate, can be a star running back down there. Walker, like you just said, Brock Purdy. I mean, who expected that? No one. Chris Olave, another one of your favorites, Kevin, down in
New
Orleans.
He made things work down there, even though we don't. The red rifle is nobody's idea of a quarterback,
right? And we haven't even brought up my guy, right? Christian Watson up here, and Romeo Doubs up here in Green Bay, who looked like good receivers, and Watson looks like he could be a star if he can, continue on the same trajectory. I mean, there were some guys across the league this year that really looked like, the league's in good hands. The league's in good hands, I think, right now with rookies. George Pickens looked good in Pittsburgh. There were guys all over the league. Real quick here, let's take our second break. And then when we come back on the other side, we're going to nail this.
You want to finally talk Super Bowl?
We're going to nail this Super Bowl talk, but we're going to start with another one of the award winners from this year when we do come back on the other side. And it's probably not the one that you're thinking of.
We have breaking news. Manscaped now sells beard products. That's right. They are once again revolutionizing men's grooming with the brand new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. From a beard trim to a fresh shave, the technology behind the Beard Hedger Pro Kit allows you to shape your signature beard look. Now you can finally use Manscaped products to make your drapes match your carpet by going to manscaped.com and using the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY for 20% off and free shipping. It's time to tame your mane. No one likes a weird beard, so say goodbye to all your stubble and trouble with Manscaped Pro Beard Kit. It all starts with the Beard Hedger. This thing is a juggernaut of fixing faces. First off, this cordless trimmer has a rotary wheel that gives you 20 hair cutting lengths, all with one guard, so no more messy drawers full of extra add-ons. That's right, face grooming doesn't need to be hard. Get 20 different beard lengths in just one guard. Plus, it's waterproof, so you can shave in the shower to avoid all that hair in the sink. The titanium-coated T-blade is tough on hair but smooth on your face, leading to single-stroke efficiency that brings satisfaction one stroke at a time. So make sure you get 20% off and free shipping when you go to manscaped.com by using the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY. Once again, that's 20% off and free shipping when you use the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY at manscaped.com.
Real fast, I have the new beard trimmer. Love it. Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for mine to grow in. I've got the beard trimmer. I'm using the products. So it takes me a while, guys. I mean, you've seen me. You know I typically wear one. I shaved it earlier this year.
As you can see, there's no beard happening here, but I do have the nose trimmer, which could be a forest up in there.
Right.
And so,
I got the whole set with it, and the
nose trimmer keeps it from being a beard trimmer.
That's right.
Between the beard oils, between the beard shampoo, and all the accessories that come with it, my beard's never felt better. So love it.
Excellent. All right. Well, as we said, today is obviously Super Bowl Sunday. We do need to talk about that because we are a fantasy show and we are looking at the fantasy prospects for that. But I want to touch real quick on the fact that Howie Roseman, the general manager for the Philadelphia Eagles, was rightly named by the Pro Football Writers Association Executive of the Year in the NFL. Look
100%
at the
agree.
year that dude had.
100. Not even just this year. Talk about the last couple of years they had
build
building
the
this
team overall, but then this past off season,
Yeah.
between the draft that he nailed and the draft day trade for AJ Brown and
Yep.
just crushed that.
He's
The
nailed it.
in-season trades and additions that they made, the free agent signings that they made. And here they are. Here they are, the number 1 seed all season, and coming into the Super Bowl with a great chance of.
And even past the talent,
taking
just
the
being able to put together the coaching staff to be able to put together. This is going to sound weird. Putting together the coaching staff that's then going to put together the coaching staff to get the most out of guys like Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott and on all these other guys on this offense and this defense. 100%, he should be the poster boy for what an executive should be striving for right now, definitely going forward, even if I think their head coach is a bit of a tool bag and gets way too much camera time on the sideline, and I want to punch him every time the camera goes to him. He's making some stupid face with it all. He's so freaking annoying. I hate him so much. But from a football standpoint, he's doing great.
You're the first person that I've heard that has said that they dislike that about him.
He's so fucking annoying. Anytime they put him on the TV, like last week not last week, the week before during the conference championship, every time they showed him, I wanted to punch him. He just pissed me off.
All right, so there you go. The Duck has spoken on that. So, but aside from that, when you look at Jalen Hurts, right? Because his coach before didn't believe in him, right?
Yeah.
Didn't believe in him so much that it got him a ticket out of town, right? Okay. So if you're Jalen Hurts and your head coach does not believe in you, that's got to put questions in your mind, even though the organization backed you, right? And so he put together a solid season, and we all knew that Jalen Hurts was the key to the Philadelphia season. We knew that going in. They have all this, and Jalen Hurts blew the doors off of everything until he got hurt. And so, you got to give credit that they were able to salvage. That's not even the right word, but they were able to put him in the space rocket, and the space rocket went off. Instead, went up in the air. It didn't blow up, right? On takeoff. So that alone right there gives the ups for the management of the year or
executive of the year. Yep. No, I agree completely.
Executive of the year. So he deserved to win that award, no question.
Like you said, the poster, she should be the poster, the dictionary entry for what an NFL executive and how they should be operated now. I think we've all seen, some questionable decisions made by our own teams, the three or four or six that we all tend to cheer for. I'm panicking a little bit on this end because it's been rumored that the Haslams, the Browns owners, are looking into buying a minority but high share of the Milwaukee Bucks, and I'm like, no, the Bucks have already. Why? The Bucks have already done things. They're good.
They've won 10 straight games. Don't let it happen.
But
don't let it happen.
Howie Roseman he has nailed it there in Philadelphia, and that's going to bring us to the game now.
Yes.
The majority of the money in Vegas, the majority of the betting money, the majority of the opinion, the public opinion, seems to be on the Eagles side. Okay. Now our friends over at Quarter Four, and Kevin and I have touched on this quite a bit on the Wednesday night show, but our friends over at Quarter Four actually have the Chiefs as the favorite here. Mm-hmm. They actually have the Chiefs as a 1.5 point favorite,
which is exactly flipped.
Which is
the scenario I've seen.
Which is against the grain of everyone else. They've got an over-under set right about where everybody else does at 51.5. Andrew and I were talking about this before the show here, that we both think that we're going to hammer on the over on that one. Mm-hmm. But with the line being what it is, 1.5 in favor of the Eagles, if you're going with some of the Vegas books. At this point. If you're looking at Quarter Four puts all of their data into it, and they say the Chiefs are 1.5 favorites. We've got the two number one seeds,
right?
The consensus two best teams all season. Had Jalen Hurts not gotten hurt, like you said, Kevin, he may have been the MVP of this season.
He was when he went down. He was the MVP.
If Jalen Hurts hadn't got hurt, they may have had an undefeated season.
Right.
I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility with the way they were tracking with him at quarterback before the injury.
right?
Right. One loss maybe at most.
Exactly.
So when we look at this game and we look at trying to put together a DFS lineup, now if you're putting together a DFS lineup for this one game, it's going to be a showdown. It's going to be a showdown style, which means you're not going with your traditional, long lineup. You're going with your 5 flex positions and your captain position.
Mhm.
Okay, you've got the 2 of the best offenses in the entire league. Maybe the 2 best in the entire league, top to bottom. At every position, there's weapons. At tight end, both teams have weapons. Quarterback, obviously, we just talked about 2 MVP candidates and an MVP winner. You've got weapons at receiver, more so on the Philly side than on the Kansas City side. But let's not forget that Juju Smith-Schuster has been a top fantasy guy before. MVS is coming off a great game.
Well, he made me look silly
like a
in our episode when we were talking about MVS. I'm like, I don't want to hear about MVS, and he went out there and said, "Hey, Mr. Wilson, here's some eggs for you." And so
I whiffed on him too last week.
So
if you took the overall body of work that I put forward last week in terms of my DFS picks, you won money last week, but we did miss on MVS last week.
And I also missed on McKinnon, because where has he been?
Yeah, he's gone. Pacheco's backfield now.
Exactly.
Pacheco he showed up at and that's one of the prop bets where I talked about McKinnon 1.5 point catches or something like that. And I'm going over.
I mean, I might still take the over on that. I might still go catches, yeah.
I could see that, but you bring up McKinnon and Pacheco. Yeah, Pacheco has been much more of the guy in the playoffs here than McKinnon.
Yeah,
over the course of the season, McKinnon was a great find, and he was a great piece to that
9
puzzle.
TDs on the season.
He became their pass catching back while they were still fiddling around with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Pacheco. And
we're not going to mention him again, all right? Even though he's active.
I hope we don't have to in the future as well, because Pacheco now here in the last little stretch here looks like he should be that guy. And
CH is done on the Chiefs.
Over the course of the playoffs, they've even given Pacheco the passes that McKinnon had caught all year.
Yep.
So I was way off on McKinnon.
So you may have heard Duck throw that in there earlier about put Pacheco in your daily fantasy lineups. I agree with that completely.
He needs to have a big game for the Chiefs to have if you're talking about the Chiefs winning, he has to have a good game.
So we want to look at the running back position real quick here on DraftKings. Yeah. Keep in mind that if you put one of these guys in whoever you put in your captain position, you're going to pay 1.5 times for. Yep. You're going to have to pay 1.5 their salary, but you're also going to get 1.5 their points. Okay. Pacheco right now is the number 2 in terms of cost running back behind Sanders. Miles Sanders is going to cost you $7,800. Isaiah Pacheco is going to cost you $7,200 out of your $50,000 there. I actually have Pacheco ranked ahead of Sanders in terms of this game.
I do as well. Based on the catching, the running, that's a clear pick for me.
If they continue to give him the opportunities in the pass game, and he looks explosive. He's a good hard runner. He looks like the total package. McKinnon doesn't necessarily give you that total package. He was a good receiver. He's a good savvy veteran player.
Before the playoffs, he gave you the reception, and that was it.
But
he's not giving you that anymore.
And if you look at the Eagles now, the Eagles 2-game playoff run, Miles Sanders. They have not needed Miles Sanders to be a juggernaut. Oh. They have not had to funnel the ball to him to be effective in the run game. This is the top running team in football. Yes, partially because they've got Jalen Hurts, who's one of the best running quarterbacks in the game and led the league in quarterback rushing touchdowns. But they have used Kenneth Gainwell. Kenneth Gainwell is the guy who had the explosion game last week. He's the guy who's had the big, or the week before. He's the guy who's had the big, playoff here. He's actually only trailing Sanders in carries by a couple, but he's got more targets than Sanders. And he's taking, like some very good, big quality reps there in that backfield. And then on top of that, you've got Boston Scott, who might be the world's smallest goal line back at 5'6".
True.
But they have both been kind of we would have said back in the day, pouring touchdowns off of nowadays they'd say vulture, taking the touchdowns away from Sanders though. So, of the running backs in this game, who would you be looking to put in your fantasy lineups? Andrew, we'll go ahead and start with you. I know you talked about Pacheco, but go ahead and repeat it.
Yeah, so I'm building a few different lineups. I'm probably gonna build 3 total. I will say the first lineup I did build, I had Miles Sanders at captain just because it felt like it could be just you never know what the Eagles, what they're gonna do when it comes to running, who's gonna get the touchdown. So it felt like a good spot to just take a chance. And I was still able to get everybody I wanted to get outside of Mahomes in that lineup. But I do also have a lineup with Pacheco a captain. So, look, I'm there for Pacheco. I said it before. I'm trying to build one last lineup now with somebody else at captain and including either Gainwell or Scott. So, the running backs are going to reign true. Or I should say not just the running backs and anybody running the ball. And what I mean by that is Kadarius Toney as well, Jalen Hurts. Anybody who's taking the ball out of the backfield today is going to be the guys you're looking to target no matter what. That's the way I'm looking at it. Yes, I'm going to have some shares of Juju just because I think he's too much of a value for his price today, considering the showdown and his price. And then I'll probably have a little bit of Devontae Smith, but I think it's going to be mostly creative plays on the ground or just straight running plays.
Kevin, who do you like who do you like in the backfield in terms of plugging into a fantasy lineup here today with 5 flexes and a captain?
Well, we definitely talked about Pacheco as the guy to me. We've seen he's able to run the ball, and then he had 5 catches against Cincinnati. So he can run it, he can catch it. So therefore, I'm going with that. And as far as Philadelphia, Andrew, you mentioned it. You don't know who to put your money in, but I'm not putting it on Sanders because I think that's too much. So. Yeah. I think Gainwell is the way to go there, and because he's gotten carries, he's gotten catches, so I'm going to go that. And I'm not going any receivers on Kansas City. Maybe Toney, because we talked about him. Remember,
I like Toney
a couple of weeks ago, but he got, he was injured and everything else. They're saying that he was back in practice. So if I'm looking at a guy for the receivers for them, that might be the guy I look at. And as far as Smith-Schuster, I want nothing to do with him. He's got 3 catches in 2 playoff games. I'm not going to even get involved in that. And Kelsey, that might be – you might have to put just a little bit too much money into that, but that's okay because then if you look on the other side, who do they have? Goddard, right? And one of the top tight ends in all football when he's healthy, and he is now healthy. So Goddard's a solid play to me. And as far as the quarterback – as good as Hurts is, you got to go with Mahomes is the only thing that concerns me because Mahomes, I think is he going to be that ankle is going to be healthy. Philadelphia's pass rush had 70 sacks, 70 sacks this year, and before the playoffs even came, and so that gives some concern there. But it's Mahomes.
And that's a concern, but at the same time, the Chiefs had the number 4 offensive line by PFF's rankings too.
And so it's not Cincinnati's broken down offensive line that Kansas City got to him 5 times. They're not going to get to Jalen Hurts 5 times.
So I've got 3 running backs in my DFS lineup that I plugged in here today. I've got Pacheco. I think that you have to. I think that no matter what happens in this game, they're going to have to use him. They're going to have to lean on him a little bit. And it's one area where you can attack the Eagles and actually score some fantasy points. That was their worst. That was the Philadelphia defense's worst matchup in terms of, or the best matchup for opposing players in terms of facing the Eagles was at running back. Trying to buck the system, showdown, you're in these large pool, contests. I've got Gainwell and Scott both in there.
Yeah, I have different lines each too.
Yep, I've got them both in there with Pacheco. I'm going away from Sanders because I think Sanders is kind of a chalky play.
It's too much money.
Like I said, he hasn't. I mean, they
And,
haven't
and he
needed
hasn't
him.
shown it.
Like I
I
said,
mean-
I did make 4 lineups. One out of my 4 lineups, I am playing Sanders just in case, because you have with the Eagles backfield, you kind of just have to take the shot.
He did have 2 touchdowns last week.
The only question, because
2
Kansas
weeks
City's
ago.
defensive strength is the run game.
For the
Well,
first
that's
time,
strength on strength
It's
right
the
there.
one arguable strength that they have, and that's arguable at best
Well,
for their strength. But you are correct. That is
they
their,
had the number 8 rush defense. That's an argument that will win every single day.
that.
Right.
But
so,
you're also talking about, like I said, the Eagles have the number 1 offensive line,
Right.
PFF
so it's
wise.
strength
There's a
versus
reason that
strength
team
here.
was the best rushing offense in football. But I'm plugging running backs into my DFS lineups all day long. You brought up Kadarius Toney, Kevin. Kadarius Toney's a guy that I like.
Mhm.
You know, as you're building your lineup, and I don't have him in my lineup only because I kind of stacked the top end. But you get to that end, you get to the point where you're at the end. You've got one or 2 guys left you have to put in, and you've only got 9,000 left. Yes, exactly.
He's
Kadarius
cheap.
Toney is a nice end of roster. You know, you don't have a ton of money left. You can find a way to work him in and plug him in.
30% target share when he's on the field.
Right.
And that's
when
not
he's on the
including
field, they get him the ball.
Field.
Andrew brought it up that they're going to scheme the ball to him on the ground. They're going to throw it to him in the red zone. They are going to get Kadarius Toney the ball, so he makes a nice big swing play there at the bottom, at the end of your roster there, and he could be something that pushes you over the top there. I'm not big on most of the other receivers for
He can't
Kansas
be.
City.
No. Smith-Schuster, you can't do that.
He's the only one
And
you can
MVS,
Mecole
as
Hardman
good
is
as he
out.
was
He's
against
on IR
Cincinnati,
now.
I'm not betting on him.
Sky Moore, Justin Watson. I mean, none of
No.
those guys are good.
And look, the receivers as a whole, if you're going to take a shot at anyone, given the inconsistency and all of their ceilings, all the receivers in this game, you might as well take a shot on Quez Watkins at 1,800 because he's
For a
dirty.
For back of the
been
roster
checked out of
filler?
the
Yeah.
offensive
No, I know.
scheme.
But that's my point. That's my point. Like it all because any of these receivers, the only thing that's going to make them relevant in today's game is going to be one
60-yard
big
catch.
play.
Yep.
And Quez Watkins has
Quez
just as much
Watkins
of a
might be
chance to
more
get that
capable
one
of the big
play.
60-yard catch than anybody else on the
Exactly.
field.
And at 1,800, he's at least gonna if he gets that one catch, is at least gonna get you your value.
But they haven't even gotten him on the field. So
think about
that's the
think about
problem.
this.
Super Bowl, they're gonna pull out all the shots, all the
Like you
stops. in the
said.
Super Bowl.
Like you said, if you could put him at the end of your roster, $1,800, that leaves a ton of money to put some of the guys that you do feel better about above him on there and still have that big swing opportunity to differentiate your lineup from everybody else's and get some value back to begin with.
He allows you to get a Pacheco in your captain spot, something like that.
Right.
He allows that to happen.
So,
Yeah.
but when we talk about receivers, we can talk about, and we do, I think we probably all agree, we like at least the chances for the receivers on Philadelphia's side
Sure.
and AJ Brown.
And I like
and
Smith
Devontae
as the better
Smith.
value.
Yeah, I like Smith as
Here.
the better value as well. Yes.
And hey, look at that. Everybody consensus agreement across the board. That we haven't seen
Ring
that
the
a ton
bell.
on this show, but I agree completely. In fact, I've got Smith in my captain spot.
There we go. I love it. I might have to make
think,
a fifth lineup right now where I do that too.
I
Fuck it.
think the layperson, you like to look at ways to differentiate your roster. You want to be contrarian. You want to stand out. You want to make a different lineup than everybody else is. I think the layperson, the dude or girl who doesn't necessarily do this every week and is like, oh, hey, it's Super Bowl Sunday. Why don't I throw a bet in? Or why don't I throw some money on a lineup here? They're going to look, see you later, Andrew. They're going to look for,
Andrew,
they're going to
bit the
look
dust.
for quarterbacks in their MVP or their captain slot. They're going to think, well, quarterbacks score the most, and why wouldn't I want 1.5 times of that? And that's true. But when you look at the receiver position has the ability with a decent game from a quarterback, a receiver can have a blow up game, right?
That's right, because that's the Kansas City defense's shortcoming is in their pass defense.
Right.
And so I think, we're on the right road here.
If you read my Super Bowl preview
Which I
over
did, by the way.
FantasySports.com,
Which I did.
if you read that, when Jalen Hurts Jalen Hurts this year, we said he led the league in quarterback rushing touchdowns. He had 13. All right. There were 6 games this regular season where Jalen Hurts did not score a rushing touchdown. In those 6 games, 4 of those games, either or both of Brown or Smith outscored him in terms of fantasy points. So you could get the benefit of a big game from your quarterback, from Jalen Hurts, and still have the opportunity to outscore him with a wide receiver. If Jalen Hurts has a good day today passing the ball, Devontae Smith is going to be part of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so I like the idea of throwing him in your captain slot. I was able to still get Jalen Hurts into my lineup and have those quarterback points available. But you have the opportunity by putting a receiver or a running back in your captain slot when the layperson is maybe going to be thinking more about quarterback to, again, differentiate your lineup a little bit there. I think it's interesting that we all think that Smith is the better value over Brown. Is that recency bias, or what's our thinking behind that? Kevin, let's start with you. Why do you think so?
I think that's because, first, he's less money. Second, we've seen that because when he went up against the Giants, he was targeted 10 times.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't get that as much against the 49ers, but that's okay because that was the 49ers. And so, as we mentioned, Kansas City's pass defense is not the 49ers. And so I think for the less amount of money, Smith is the better value. I'm not saying that Smith is the better player at all, because I think Brown is going to show up in this game. He needs, their pass offense for the Eagles needs to show up because, as I mentioned, Kansas City's defense is strongest against the run. So I think that's going to curtail their running just a little bit. So their passing needs to show up. So That's where I'm going with Smith is the better DFS play here.
All right. Yeah, I don't think it would shock anybody if Brown has a blow-up game. It's AJ freaking
absolutely.
Brown. But Andrew, why are you
He had
bigger
8
on
targets
Smith?
against the 49ers, so it's certainly possible. Brown could be all over the place.
Andrew, why are you bigger on Smith than Brown?
I just think Smith is going to be able to do more in the sense of freelancing where they need to in this. If Jalen Hurts is having to move around a lot, I think Devontae Smith is going to be able to get to the spots Hurts needs him to get to more. Also, if Hurts' shoulder were to step in and be a factor in this game where he's not throwing 100%, I think Devontae Smith plays that role that he needs a little bit better. Another reason why Dallas Goedert could be a good play today at the tight end if he has to rely on a safety blanket. But if we're just talking receivers, I think Devontae Smith is more of a safety blanket than A.J. Brown is.
All right, yeah, and as Kevin brought up, A.J. Brown's going to cost you $9,200. He's actually the 4th most expensive player in the entire game today, behind the 2 quarterbacks and Travis Kelce. But with that, let's move on then to put a coda on the receiver talk here. Smith has been the hot hand too in the playoffs here. He's been the hot hand in the playoffs. He's been the one they've gone to. But now looking at our tight ends, we've got the top tight end option in the entire game in Travis Kelce, and we've got a top 5 type option in Dallas Goedert on the other side. One of them is going to cost you $10,600 and over almost a quarter of your budget if you're going to put him in your captain slot in Travis Kelce. The other one's going to cost you $6,400, about a mid-level receiver cost in Dallas Goedert. Now, of the 2, do you like value on one more than the other, or do you think that you can't go wrong with either one of them? Andrew, let's start with you. What's your take on Kelce versus Goedert here?
In this scenario, I think value's out the window because I think there's just no way you don't cash if you don't have Kelce in your lineup somewhere. I think it's just the bottom line. Value doesn't matter. Kelce's the first guy. You're probably not going to be able to afford him at captain unless you're playing some really risky plays, but Kelce, I think, just needs to be your first ad at flex no matter what. And I just don't think you cash without him.
I agree with that completely.
I don't, like I said, I think Goddard just still could be a good play, especially at his value today.
Yeah,
but
I agree with that.
It's just no matter what I'm paying for Kelce.
Kevin, go ahead.
So, you were talking about playing 3 running backs. I'm saying that 2 tight ends,
Mm-hmm.
putting those into your lineup, that's the way to go today, because Goddard 2 games has 5 catches in both games,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Who the hell
And
would have
so-
thought we'd have been talking about 2 tight ends? Man,
Well, we were
this
talking,
year.
yeah.
I mean, we're always going to talk about one of them, Travis Kelce, but who the hell would have thought this year we were going to talk about
So,
2 tight ends?
Yeah,
Keep going, Kevin.
in my DFS play, I'm putting both of them in my lineups because I trust Goddard over the Kansas City wide receivers.
Yeah.
That's kind of hard to, that
No, I
blows the
agree.
doors. When you're talking about a tight end over a Kansas City wide receiver, and you're here in a Super Bowl, that would be considered silly talk.
No, I agree. I agree completely that I trust him over the Kansas City wideouts today in terms of the ability to. He's going to get some targets. He's going to get catches. I like the way that they use him. Like Andrew just said, if Frank Clark, is getting loose and that pass rush is getting home on Jalen Hurts and he is forced to move around,
Mm-hmm.
I would expect they shadow him all day. I don't know if they're going to want to let him. I don't know if they can stop him, but I know they're not going to want to let him run all day. But if he's starting to move around and have to, improvise here, I do like Smith and Goddard in both of those situations. And yeah, it would be a way to set your lineup apart, man. Plugging in 2 tight ends. Travis Kelce is kind of a given. And I agree with Andrew. I don't think there's a way that you cash today without him. He might be the most matchup proof player in the game.
Kelce's the way to go today.
Yeah.
I mean,
right. Travis Kelce might be the most matchup proof player in the game.
Mhm.
They are just their entire offense is going to run through him in one way or another.
One way or another.
He's a decent blocker. He runs pass routes. Obviously, he's the best tight end overall in the game right now.
You got to figure he's going to get 10 targets or more.
But I agree with Andrew that putting him in your captain situation, like I said, using Kelce or a quarterback or even Brown for that matter in your captain spot, you're going to blow almost a quarter of your budget on your captain slot.
Yeah.
Which is not going to leave you a whole lot of money for anybody else unless you want to take some of those big risky swings like with Quez Watkins.
Yeah.
So
Which
no, I like.
I'm
that.
not willing to do that down here in Texas. That's not happening.
So let's look at Hurts versus Mahomes for our daily lineups. We've got the MVP versus the MVP hopeful. We've got two of the highest scoring quarterbacks that we could have in this game. Kevin, we'll start with you. Which of the two do you like better today in your fantasy lineup?
I like whether we're talking about actual or as far as money is involved, Mahomes, because we have not seen Hurts. Philadelphia is in this game not because of Hurts. All right, he has not played great. He hasn't had to play great, but look at these numbers, right? You're telling me against the 49ers, he was 15 of 25 for 121 yards. That's not winning you anything right there. On the ground, he had a touchdown, which is great. All right. But that's not Mahomes. All right. And Mahomes has had a couple weeks now. I think his ankle is going to be fine, even though he's going to, like we talked about, Cincinnati moving him around, which they kind of did a little bit. Philadelphia is probably going to be doing that too. But I like Mahomes because he's been here before, first of all. Second of all, he is the MVP. And
all right.
So I'm going with Mahomes.
We got one vote for the MVP. Andrew, who you got today?
I like Hurts more, just for the simple fact that I think he's more likely to get both a passing and a rushing touchdown today. And those 2 extra points for rushing touchdown. Hell, he could get 2 rushing touchdowns for all we know today. Those 2 extra points could be a big difference. Too many times have I lost in DFS by less than a point from cashing. So 2 points means a lot, especially in a showdown slate. So for that reason right there, I'm going to take, sure, I think his yardage will probably be less than Mahomes. I think that's a very fair point. But
if his passing is more than Mahomes, then the Chiefs are going to get blown off the field.
Yes, but I like Jalen Hurts' overall touchdown upside a lot.
I agree with you for much of the same reason. I think that his rushing floor and the fact that he is going to score a rushing touchdown, I think that's almost that. Speaking of prop bets that we'll talk about here in just 2 seconds, I like that one as well. The fact that he gets the points for the rushing touchdowns, but I also think that if they win this game, he's going to have at least a passing touchdown or two. That sets him up for a nice score from a quarterback position. Like I said, I think if he has a good game, that means that Devontae Smith has a big game, which is why he's in my captain position. I like Hurts between the two, and I do have him in my daily lineups this week. Andrew, your number one daily lineup then. Let's rip it off top to bottom.
I only had one before. Now I got 4 or 5. So
Boy, spread the wealth, baby.
just in the course.
Who's your number one?
A few more. But to be fair, I guess I will go back to what my original lineup was, just to stick with that. And that original lineup was the risky lineup where I put Miles Sanders at my captain. I went Jalen Hurts, Travis Kelce, Dallas Goedert, Juju, and Kadarius Toney.
There's potential. There's a lot of potential there.
But like I said, I got 4 or 5 lineups total now, so I'm
right.
spread out.
Well, my ride or die lineup that I'm going with this week.
That was just when I built this morning, just off of my gut instinct. That was what I came up with. So
I've got Smith in my captain's spot to save myself a little bit of money there, but plus, like I said, I think that if Hurts has a big day, Smith does. Yeah. So I've got Smith as my captain. I did plug Hurts in there. I did plug Kelce in there at the top end of things. I do have Pacheco in that number one lineup, and then I have, as I said before, both Gainwell and Scott, which might sound a little counterintuitive, but hey, I mean, honestly, they're both coming on. You know, they've both scored in these playoffs. We saw it against New York. And we saw it last week that they're going to use Gainwell, and Scott still got a short touchdown. So I like the swing there. I think that there's still a possibility that everybody in the backfield gets involved for Philadelphia there. Real quick then here, before we take off and let everybody get back to their pregame festivities here, let's look at some of the betting props here. And I want to know what everybody's thoughts are on these real quick. We'll do it like quick fire style here. We'll say over under here. Devontae Smith receptions, starting with the Eagles. Devontae Smith receptions in the game, 5.4. You guys going over or under, Andrew?
Over
for both. Okay. He went over 5.4 receptions 8 times in the regular season. He was under 5.4 receptions 9 times. He was exactly at 5 catches 5 times.
So
I mean, that's why they set the lines the way they do. Folks.
Somebody's researching this, is what I'm saying.
And in the postseason, he's been under once and over once. That's why the line is at 5.4, folks. Like I said, I'm betting on him today. So
I like how they come up with 5.4, not 5.5.
It's a way to make it. It's a way to make you make that call. Like I said, if you go exactly 5, which he did 5 times this year, that's still under. But I like the over there too. I'm betting on him this week, and he's kind of the key to my entire strategy this week. Miles Sanders rush yards, 40.6. We going higher or lower, over under on that?
I'm going over.
Yeah, that's a very low floor to me, so I'm going to go over.
These numbers are, by the way, again, these numbers are courtesy of our friends over at Quarter 4. I would hammer the over on that as well. Mm-hmm. He hit the over on that 15 times out of 17 regular season games.
Yep. And
he's been over both postseason games so far. I think that, I mean, if they're going to give you that was a
money in the bank.
It's got to be the favorite over.
And he doesn't have to score to get that
today.
He doesn't have to score to get that total.
No,
but he's done it 17 times out of 19 games so far.
He could still average less than 3 yards per carry and hit that.
And still get that. Exactly. I mean, let alone the idea that he possibly busts off an 18-yarder or something, gets half of it in one go. A.J. Brown receiving yards, 62.6.
I'm going under because I'm over on the Devontae Smith.
Yeah, that's a pretty low. Go under. Not by much.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, between Devontae,
you guys are both under.
Between my belief in Smith,
he might catch that in one ball.
Backs. Yeah, I'm gonna go under on Brown.
That's a tough number. He hit that mark 12 times in a regular season. He only missed it 5 times. Yeah. But, and this is why I brought up the idea of recency bias or the hot hand. He has missed that total in both of their postseason games so far.
Mm-hmm.
Which is part of the reason why I think I'm betting on Devontae Smith today. But that doesn't seem like a whole hell of a lot of yards for somebody
No,
the
it
caliber
sure
of A.J.
doesn't.
Brown.
That'd be a
I'd have to
disappointing-
hold my
even if he
nose
hits-
and
it's
still
disappointing.
hit the under on that one.
I think that's one I'd be steering clear of personally.
Way clear of that.
Yep.
Patrick Mahomes, let's move to the other side of the field real quick. Patrick Mahomes passing yards, 308.5 over under.
That's a good number.
That's a great number.
It is a number. I'm going under.
I think my instinct is under as well. I don't think by
If he's over, then
close.
Kansas City is not in a good spot in this game.
Yeah,
throwing.
if
He
he's
has
over
to
that, my
throw.
game prediction falls completely
Yeah.
on his face.
So I'm
I
going
agree. He hit that 10 times in a regular season. He's split here in the postseason. Hit it once, missed it once. Isaiah Pacheco receptions,
Okay.
1.6.
Over.
Does he get 2 catches
Yeah.
or does
over.
he
Yeah.
not?
He has 2 catches by halftime.
Yeah. Over.
He was targeted in only 8 games this season. Now, keep in mind, he didn't necessarily take
Yeah.
over that backfield
So
until the second
this
half
is
of the
another
season.
recency bias situation.
He saw a target in only 8 games this season. He was over 1.6 receptions in 4 of them, under in 4. And if you take the idea of the entire season into account and that he didn't get targeted in some of those games, he missed that in 13 games this season. But he had only 1 catch in the divisional round, but he had 6 last week.
Mhm.
Over.
Vegas is betting on your recency bias there to pull you to that over there. I don't think Vegas thinks he's going to hit that. I tend
do.
to think that it looks like he's the better player, and I think that they're going to ride him and not worry about Jerick McKinnon as much. I think McKinnon still gets a couple of catches
That's
in this
the
game.
pattern that's been established through 2 games, and I see no reason to change that now.
But everybody thinks they're smarter than Vegas. So, everybody wants to, and that's why we all bet, right? Last one here real quick before we wrap things up. Travis Kelce receptions, 6.2.
Over.
If he's lower than 6.2, it's over. Okay.
He
Agreed.
hit the over on that number 7 times this season. He was under 10 times this season. But when it counts in the postseason, he has hit that twice. He's been over twice.
Over. He might have that by halftime as well.
I'm actually a little shocked that he missed that number in 7 games. But he did have a couple. He had like a 3-game stretch where he only had like four catches in each game, 3-4 game stretch there in the middle of the season.
but he still had 3 touchdowns.
He's still an amazing player, and I agree. I think that he has to have a game today. Okay, so let's wrap things up here real quick. Game picks. Andrew, who do you got tonight and why?
Eagles 37-31. That's my. I think
Way
it's
over.
I think it's way over. I think it's a great back and forth game. I think the Eagles pull it out. I think I've stated everything why. I just think they're the better
There you
team.
go. All right, Kevin, who you got tonight
So-
and why?
I've been going under on the points this whole playoffs. That's worked out pretty well for me, so I'm going to stay there. But as far as this game has had me going back and forth. I want to say Kansas City, but I'm going to say the Eagles are going to win this game 27-24, and it's going to come down to the last plays of the game, which is all you can hope for out of this game for me, because I got no skin whatsoever in it.
There you go.
So I just hope for a game that's 2 minutes to play, and we're still in doubt.
And that's what I'm hoping for too. I'm on record. I actually I put this out, and it's in my article as well. Again, over at BellyUpFantasySports.com. I have Eagles 31, Chiefs 23. I think they take care of business. I think the Chiefs do score. That's 4 scoring drives for them. But it's 5 scoring drives actually for them. But I just think that the Eagles defense can rise to the occasion. I think that they have too many offensive weapons. I think they have too good an offensive line for things. And it looks to me like a game that the Eagles should win. I think the Chiefs come down. I'm hoping this comes down to, like you said, Kevin, 2 minutes left, the ball in Patrick Mahomes' hands, where an 8-point game, he has a chance to go down there, score the touchdown, and go for 2. But I am taking the Eagles 31-23 over the Chiefs tonight. What's your plans for tonight then, Andrew? Where are you watching the game and who are you watching with? And
I honestly don't even have a set plan still yet at the moment.
boy.
I'm either going to be at a friend's house or at a bar. Those are my 2 options at this point. I'm waiting
There
for
you
the
go.
final plans to fall in.
Kevin, where are you watching tonight?
I'll be watching that about 15 feet from where I am right now on the couch.
Yep.
And we have we just bought ourselves a new TV, big screen over there. So
Boy.
we're going to be watching that, and we still have to decide what we are going to be featuring as our, got to have finger foods.
There you
And
go.
I know one of the other Belly Up shows had a complete ensemble of what you should bring to your, to Super Bowl party, but there's going to be wings there. You can be sure about that.
Hells yeah.
And lemon pepper, that's the way to go. So we'll have some lemon pepper wings, I'm sure. And whatever else is to be determined.
I tend to go with the spicy garlic wings myself. I'll be watching it down here, probably in the bar. I'll be watching it at the Mountain Daily here on that screen right there, and enjoying all the fruits of my wife's labors around me here. So, what are we drinking tonight, Andrew? What are you drinking tonight?
Probably a fair share amount of whiskey.
There you
Oh,
go.
wow.
I think I'm gonna be going for tonight.
Hammer it
Which
down.
is
There you go.
dangerous because I got to go to the office tomorrow morning, and our global CEO.
You're not one of the millions who have called in
No,
already or taken
I'm
off.
with you there, Andrew.
I can't call him
I
tomorrow.
must
Like I
be
said, our
in the
global
office
CEO
tomorrow. So.
is in the office, so I gotta be there tomorrow.
My office is upstairs. My boys will be in school and daycare, so I don't have to worry about that. Kevin, what are you drinking tonight, dude?
I've got my Bud Lights seltzers going on. I got a
There you
Twisted Berry happening right here, and
There you
also got limeades already over there. And so
Living it
just
up.
crack the top, and we're on our way.
I'll be running with the local favorite, the Liney's Oktoberfest here. It's the last of my Oktoberfest stock. I like to stock up on that, and you guys know I like to chew my beer. I'm not necessarily one for the blue and silver can type stuff, but all right. Hey, let's just hope it's a great game. Good luck to everybody on their fantasy lineups and on their bets. Andrew, what do you got going on right now? Where can we find you quick on the way out the door here?
Really, all my focus right now has been on the golf show, Divots and Pivots, right here. So you can find us there every Tuesday night, 8 o'clock on YouTube, Divots and Pivots, search there. We are going to be switching our YouTube channel over to be part of we're going to be the golf show for the new Fantasy Sports Corporation. So you'll soon be able to find our show being aired there instead of on the Divots and Pivots YouTube channel. So check out either one. 8 o'clock.
Give it a look.
Yeah.
Excellent. Kevin, what do you got going on right now? Where can we find
Well,
you?
you'd think that I would have enough talking about Super Bowl Sunday, but Belly Up has a Super Bowl super show coming up later this afternoon.
I'll also
4 o'clock, where Andrew is, 3 o'clock where we, you and I are, Chase. So I'm going to be part of that show. And also, Vince and I had our very first fantasy baseball show last Sunday. We ranked our fantasy catchers, and the second show will be next Sunday. We'll be ranking our first and third baseman in that game, or in that show. And we've got fantasy articles going all over the place. Fantasy baseball is a hot topic on Belly Up Fantasy. I've got an article there right now, and we've got just a brand new face for Belly Up, and he is fired up about baseball, and he's got like 2 or 3 different articles already going out there.
Very
so
much so. Ian Lemersall, check his stuff
Ian,
out over there. Yep.
our man Ian over there, and so if you're into fantasy baseball, and if you're not, you need to question why. But
well, like I said, I mean, if football's over today, dude, so it's either prop bets on the draft and free agency, or it's move on to fantasy basketball and baseball if you're into that kind of thing.
Right. And fantasy basketball and fantasy hockey are already well involved in their season.
Right,
so if
yeah,
you want to get
you're
started
stuck
at the
there.
beginning of something, this is the way to go in fantasy baseball right now. And like I said, there are tons of and there's going to be tons more of information on fantasy baseball on the Belly Up Fantasy Live website or Belly Up Fantasy website.
There you go.
Get over
Yeah,
there,
so
check it out.
definitely get over there. Check out Divots and Pivots. Check out the Sports Stove. Check
Divots
out
and
Belly Up
pivots and
Fantasy
golfing
Live.
goes hand in
Check
hand.
out
So get over there.
bellyupfantasysports.com for all of our articles. I will be jumping in on the baseball thing here too as soon as I wrap up football season following tonight's game. You can find me, like I said, I've got a Super Bowl preview out over there where we went in a little bit more in depth than I
As
went
I
in here.
mentioned, Chase, I've read it. It's awesome. Get over there, check it out
Yes.
in
Thank
like
you,
3
sir.
minutes. It'll
All
do you
right.
good.
And with that being said, good luck, everybody. It looks like Andrew and I both have to go avoid the bladders here, but good luck to everybody. Good luck to everybody on your fantasy lineups. Let's hope that everybody is able to cash in one last time, and we will see you again next Sunday right here, same bat time, same bat channel for Belly Up Fantasy Live. Good luck.
Good luck.